All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, when the Seattle Seahawks traded quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos, there was a huge contingent who could not understand what the Seahawks brain trust was doing. But through 6 weeks of this NFL season, Pete Carroll and the rest of the Seahawks front office appear to be having the last laugh. Now, so far with the Broncos, Wilson appears just to be a shell of himself as he is on pace for his worst season in the NFL. The Broncos are 2 and 4 and Wilson is only completing about 58.5% of his passes, while the once flawless quarterback appears to be timid and unsure of himself in the pocket. To his credit, he only has one 300-yard passing game so far this season. That came in the week 1 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. And on top of that, he's already been sacked 20 times, yet we've only played 6 games. And, before in Seattle, the excuse was, you know what? Russ doesn't have enough help around him. He's got plenty of help around him in Denver. He just is not getting it done. You look at the wide receiver position, you got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Judy, KJ Hamler, guys that can ball out, and even Melvin Gordon and Javante Williams at the running back position. And yet the Broncos offense so far is one of the worst in the NFL. Now, it was the Broncos defense coming into this season that was supposed to be complementary to this Denver offense, but it's been the Denver defense that has been carrying this team and propping them up. Denver has one of the better defenses in the NFL. And honestly, the way that the Broncos have played defensively so far, they're 2 and 4, but this team could easily be 5 and 1, if not 6 and 0, just due to the fact that their way that their defense has been playing. Russ is just not getting it done. Um, you go back to the week 1 loss to the Seahawks. Wilson was 29 or 42 for 340 yards at the TD. And then, of course, we saw Nathaniel Hackett, the Broncos head coach, have the fiasco at the end, had an opportunity to try to probably get some yardage to get him closer for a better field goal. Instead, he opted for the 64-yard field goal. That was no good. The Broncos did win at home in week 2 against the Houston Texans, but it wasn't pretty. And, Russell Wilson in that game was just 14 of 31 passing. You go back, another albatross of a performance in week 3 rather, when the Broncos got their second and last win so far this season when they knocked off the 49ers at home in a game that wasn't pretty. Russ was 20 of 33 passing for a buck 84 and sacked in that contest 4 times. But then the 3 losses since then. You lose on the road to the Raiders. You come back on Thursday night a couple of weeks ago and you lose to the Colts. And then this past Monday night, where you lose to the Chargers. And it's a situation, the Bronco offense was terrible in the second half. Then on top of that, before in week 5, we saw Bronco fans leaving the stands and seats early, which never happens in that neck of the woods. And then on top of that, you have to ask yourself, speaking of that, this Bronco fan base, some of them, up to me, I think like they've already turned on Russell Wilson. And could there be guys like that feeling like that in the locker room as well? Because when Russell Wilson was brought in, he was brought in with the Kings basically parade. He was expected to be the next great veteran quarterback to come in there and solidify that position for Denver. Because you remember when Peyton Manning came in 2012, and of course, things changed very quickly for the Denver Broncos. And since that time, since Manning retired after the 2015 season, which was also the Broncos' last championship, they have had some issues at the quarterback position, whether it's via trades, drafting guys, bringing in free agents. It just has not worked out. And it's the one thing that is really hindering this team right now because you look at what the Broncos have done over the last several years. They have talent at all the other positions. They just can't get it right at quarterback. And of course, in this current National Football League, the way that things are going, if you don't have that guy at the quarterback position, you really don't have a leg to stand on. And that's what the Broncos are dealing with now. I know some of this is going to fall into the lap of first year head coach Nathaniel Hackett. Obviously so. To me, I think that Nathaniel Hackett appears to be over his head as far as a head coach, but also you got to blame some on the quarterback as well. This is, this is a system, this is where he wanted to be. And the Broncos paid him, but at this point, they're not getting their money's worth. And when it's all said and done, and you want to talk about the Broncos not getting their money's worth, I'll go out and say it. Pete Carroll sold this team a lemon. There's no other way to say it. They're not getting their money's worth. And at this point, the way that Pete Carroll is looking, he looks like if the Broncos wanted to call him up and question this move, he would be more than happy to tell them that you didn't read the fine print, because guess what? All sales are final. And at the end of the day, just like the title of this podcast, Pete Carroll suckered the Denver Broncos. They gave him that 5 year, $245 million extension with more than $160 million being guaranteed. But at this point of the season, obviously, Seattle is looking better. Geno Smith, we've never seen Geno Smith play as good as he's played so far. Excuse me, with the Seahawks. And then the team as a whole, they look a lot better. Obviously, there is still plenty of football to be played this season. A lot can change, but nonetheless, Seattle looks like they got the leg up on this deal. Of course, the question mark about injuries for Wilson. We saw him, with a hamstring injury this past Monday night against the Chargers. But honestly, you can make the case that Wilson's play is what is hamstringing this Denver Broncos offense, and more importantly, this Denver Broncos team. Now, Wilson will be 34 years of age next month. And the way that he is playing so far, it looks like the game has just passed him by. I know that in the current NFL, where quarterbacks are not getting hit like they would have been getting hit 20 to 30 years ago, there's an opportunity for a lot of guys at that position to play longer. So before, where guys were bowing out at 34 or 35 years of age, guys now can go to, they're near to, if not on the other side of 40. But Wilson looks like he got old real quick. And at the end of the day, if this keeps up, there's no way the Broncos are going to see a return on their investment. Because remember, not only did they trade for Wilson and pay him, they also gave the Seahawks draft compensation, which included multiple first round picks. Seattle had one this year, and they're going to get one next season. And the way things are looking, that pick that the Seahawks are going to receive, and they got multiple picks actually, but that a first round pick for 2023 is looking like it's going to be in the top 15, maybe top 10, the way things are working out. Now, of course, there's going to be the other question. Was Wilson propped up in Seattle? Meaning, was he a product of the system? You can make a case for it. I think that, and I said it before then, and I'll continue to say it. I think Russell Wilson came to the Seattle Seahawks at the right time, because the way that the Seahawks were being built at that point under Pete Carroll, you could see that they were a quarterback away from contending. And when Wilson got there in 2012, and when he became the starter, you needed a quarterback to make some plays at the quarterback position, but you didn't need a guy to make all of the plays, because you had Marshawn Lynch at running back in his prime. You had a phenomenal offensive line, and you had a darn good defense. And if you backtrack to Seattle's Super Bowl win when they knocked off the Broncos in January 2014, it was a scenario where, you know what? They didn't need Russ to go out there and win the game for them, because you figured you had the running game, you had that defense, which in that contest, first offensive play for the Broncos, they got a safety because the ball was snapped out of the end zone. They then had a pick six by Malcolm Smith, for a score, and you also had Percy Harvin returning the opening kickoff of the second half for a touchdown. So you had all phases of the game clicking for the Seahawks, and then for me and a lot of other people as well, things changed with the Seahawks with the Super Bowl 49 debacle. I said Super Bowl 49 before, excuse me, it was Super Bowl 48 when the Seahawks beat the Broncos. But the Super Bowl 49 debacle, of course, when um, Instead of giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch, the Seahawks decided to throw for it. And of course, Malcolm Butler made the play of all plays in Super Bowl history. And of course, the rest is history. That Seahawks team was never the same after that. And I know that some people are going to say, well, Marshawn Lynch was not a good goal line runner, the analytics, this, that, and the third. Sometimes you overthink things, and that's what the Seahawks did there because, excuse me, inside of the 1 yard line with that at that point, regardless of what point it was in the game, I'm taking my chances with Marshawn Lynch. When you had a goal to goal situation when Joe Gibbs was coaching Washington in the mid 80s, you gave the ball to John Riggins, no questions asked. The Cowboys in the mid 90s, you gave the ball to Emmett Smith on a goal to goal situation. The Bears for the 70s and 80s, you gave the ball to Walter Payton. The bottom line is when you have somebody that's good enough, even if the other team knows what's coming, they can't stop it. And even if they try to stop it, you know what? You live with it. At the end of the day, I would have taken my chances with Marshawn Lynch. The Seahawks lost an opportunity to do something that very few teams have the ability to do, which is to go out there and win consecutive Super Bowls. That team never recovered. We saw the Seahawks slowly transition to a Russell Wilson team, and this team was still good. Russell was still efficient, but they were never the championship caliber team that they once were. So, getting back to these Broncos and Russell Wilson, will things improve? There's a possibility, but they need to get going sooner rather than later because Kansas City, I know that Kansas City just lost to Buffalo on Sunday, dropping their record to 4-2. But in spite of all of the moves that were made by the other teams in the AFC West, the Chiefs are still the team to beat in that division. You're down 2 games to them. You just lost to the Chargers. So theoretically, you're down 3 games to them in that division. You cannot afford to fall any further back if you are Denver than what you currently are. You look at the wild card scenario, possibility for Denver, yes, but at the end of the day, they have to pick it up. More importantly, Russell Wilson needs to pick up his play. It starts this Sunday with the Jets. And I'll tell you like this is a home game for Denver on Sunday. But I'll tell you like this, and I'm sure Denver, I haven't checked the spread yet. I'm sure that Denver is going to be favored in that game. But Russell better bring it on Sunday because you're playing a young and hungry Jet team, a team that is fresh off of getting a win at Lambeau against Green Bay. They're playing with a ton of confidence. They have a young quarterback in Zach Wilson that they're starting to get confidence in. And I'll tell you like this. If Russ gets off to a bad start, especially with that young, opportunistic Jets defense, those Bronco fans are going to turn on him just like that. And you figure the Denver fan base for the Broncos, very supportive of their teams. Bronco Mania, you think about what it was in the 70s and 80s with the Orange Crush, of course, the John Elway years, the Peyton Manning years, and so forth. Excuse me, very passionate fan base. And if it's a scenario where Russ plays bad again, because they've seen him play bad so far at home, and the expectations were so high, and especially when you got the price tag attached to you that you did and you're not producing, those Bronco fans are going to tell you how it is. So if the Broncos cannot get it done against the Jets this Sunday, they'll be 2-5 heading to London for their game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if they can't get it done this Sunday, and they fall to 2-5. That second half of the season is going to be a work for them to try to get something going. But at the end of the day, you give the credit to the people at the top when things are going good. You also give them the blame when things are going bad. And all of the issues right now with the Broncos fall into the lap of the head coach and the quarterback. And since the quarterback is theoretically the head coach in the field, you got to put it on him. Russell Wilson is not getting it done. And so far, the Denver Broncos look like they got had. So, folks, this is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.